Good evening, listeners. This is Mulberry Bush 904. Even though I'm going to stick with 934 because they won't let me change it.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I guess once you're registered, you're registered. Now I can send an email. So right now, just plain old Mulberry Bush, but that'll never get Googled right. So, and Psychic Medium Tree with another episode of Mulberry Trimmings. Tonight's show, like previous episodes, will be on YouTube. And if anyone is interested in seeing the list of songs and related videos for tonight's show, they can also be found on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, psychicmediumtree.com. That's
right.
me.
Listeners and followers can find us there and on the aroundthemulberrybush.com website. There's a link to the broadcast.
Yep.
So,
adversity is the word.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
Yes, we are.
I love it. That's what we got to work on.
We
all have adversity. All of us. So, so we're going to talk about that, and we encourage listeners to call in.
Yep. And I wanted to open with a little bit of small talk before we get to the first song, because there's some, like, as far as me being a science fiction nerd and everything else, there's significant news that happened this week. So I thought it was appropriate to share two things of novelty and a loss, right?
Okay.
So, is that us? Oh, I think that was just the loop.
Yeah, that's just the loop. All right. So,
all right. So here, let me share the two things of news, and then I'll start with the first song, which is, so here's the two things of news. First of all, Nichelle Nichols died. That was Lieutenant Uhura from the original Star Trek. So that's a heavy loss to the Star Trek fandom.
Right.
She was very much like a noble figure in the Actors Guilds and stuff. So, and then the second news is on September 24th, there's a free ride sponsored by Mulberry Bush to go to the Neutral Zone, which is a Star Trek stage where they film TV shows. That's like a half an hour from headquarters.
Oh, that's fun. Okay.
It's being paid for by Mulberry Bush. They already confirmed it.
Okay.
So, all right. So those are my two things. Isn't that exciting? It's in honor of Lieutenant Uhura passing away.
Yes.
So, all right. So here, and we're back.
So, Jeremy, when you think of adversity, what comes to mind when you think of adversity? We all experience adversity. But what are some types of adversity that you think that most people here, share in common?
I recently read a book by Benjamin Franklin in which the quote was, "A poor man walks to get his meat, and a rich man to get his hunger." Right? So the poor man walks to get the meat, and the rich man walks to get hunger, right? So it's still a matter of, there is a
perspective.
There is a challenge ahead for the same goal, which is peace and not having disharmony in life, right? Mm-hmm. So adversity, I think of as something that's challenging, that you feel is sabotaging that forward momentum. That's what an adversary would be, someone that's an opponent toward forward momentum as well.
Right, and we all have to have adversity, because that's the only way that, as human beings upon this planet called Earth, learn and grow. And, in life, there's going to be famine, poverty, divorce, relationship struggles and challenges, job loss, war, pestilence, health challenges we deal with. So it's not necessarily the adversity that brings us down. It's literally how we learn to cope and manage the adversity. So let's talk about some successful ways and even ways of dealing with challenges and adversity. What are some of your ways, Jeremy? What do you think? Is it, some great techniques for dealing with stress and challenges?
Well, I'm sure as your ears have heard through walls, I play my guitar a lot.
Yeah.
And that helps me with stress. But also when that's
enjoyable.
It is.
Yeah.
It's almost like, but it's just like going to the gym. After a while, you can only do so many reps before you're like, all I've done is just play this stuff. So that sometimes, and this, when I wake up in the middle of the night, this is the stuff that I do. I usually grab a book and go into the spirit, and something that I'm reading is just going to be something that's going to build on my mind so that I have something to have while I'm stressing or am up for some reason awake and don't understand why and things like that. I usually just grab a book, read, and go.
And those are some great methods of coping, because we're all going to be enduring harshness in life. I think there's also a few other techniques in dealing with challenges. And one is first seeing the challenge or adversity in perspective. Right now, Ukraine is having to deal with terrorism on its own soil. So their adversity and stress is through the roof. It's to the sky. And some of those people are amazingly strong and resilient and positive, and they are doing the best they can. So that would be an example of something that's major. Now, something, maybe you woke up and you've noticed a few extra wrinkles, or you've gained 5 pounds. That would be an example of adversity, a challenge that's on a very minimal scale. So it's really important for us to size up our adversity and look at it in the correct perspective. And how we can do that is by reconnecting, like Jeremy was saying, with our spiritual side and reconnecting with our spirit guides. They're there for us throughout all our lifetimes, as well as the source.
That's the book I'm going to read from.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead with that for a minute.
Can I play a tune first and talk to you about the book?
Yep, and then I have more to say on this matter after he's finished. Oh, no, it's perfect timing.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, we are back. So,
welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, and let me switch on the light here.
And we are following up talking about adversity and how to overcome adversity and deal with challenges.
Yeah, let me make sure that's still recording, because sometimes it won't let me use the lamp.
So, Jeremy, what book is it that we're going to be looking at?
I was going to read from a book titled The Candle and the Crossroads.
Okay.
It is by Orion Foxwood, and it's a book that breaks down the Appalachian conjure and southern root work. And root work is more the voodoo stuff, and the conjure stuff is like the hill witches and stuff. So the Appalachian hill witches and the voodoo share a lot of similarity in the homeopathy of their work. So I was going to read from a section. It's about a page long. That is the how to deal with diversity of the devil.
Okay.
Right. So that's what I was going to read from. Let me get to that particular page.
See a flashlight maybe?
If you ask it to turn on torch, it will. Just say
I don't know. So, in talking about adversity,
Is that not a Siri?
there's a couple of different, let's say, perspectives that we're going to bring to light. So go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. That's true. And I'll talk about the MS stuff in a minute, because as far as the challenges that go with that, it's very interesting. So this is chapter 9 of this book, Gates into the Spirit World and Encountering the Dark Rider, right? And so the first thing starts with a quote. It says, half the work of getting the power is getting yourself in the door of the haints, right? And haints is kind of like the old school word for ghosts. So you got to get into the spirit world and the other side in order to really get past the adversity of the devil, right? Oh yeah, that's plenty. Cool. So we'll go ahead and read here. The quote was, okay, this is the author reading. The quote was shared with me several years ago by an African-American root woman I met in Washington, D.C. She was known in her community as a powerful faith healer, spiritual advisor, and spirit worker, but was not public in any way. I was blessed that she even spoke to me and knew that I am both a witch and public figure in the conjure world. Her words rang with such truth in my ears because they were raw, real, and direct. What she was saying was that a large part of the effort that spirit workers must do is get at the power of conjure to get themselves beyond the everyday way we see the world and into a place where we are in the presence of God and the spirits to leverage the power of blessing from the haints or the spirits and ghosts, right? So into the world of the purpose, into this world for the purpose of a happy life. The door is perhaps the most important part because it embodies the principle of the threshold. The threshold is where we as humans both meet the other world of spirit and come into the dance floor of this magical practice. There is much preparation and internal work that we must do to get through that door, navigate our journey while moving beyond it, manage the power that comes from it and through it.
Yeah,
and
good. Yeah, interesting.
Isn't
I
it
like this.
so far, right?
Yes, yes. Tell me more.
Yeah, two more, and it ties in very closely with what you were saying,
Exactly.
and that has been where my thoughts have been with it too. So I'm glad I found this section. Be able to close the door without locking it when we are done with our work. Indeed, we live in a physical form and must never allow ourselves to be lulled into the non-physical world in such a way that we lose our anchoring here. When it is our time to wholly live in the discarnate world, we will do that. But for now, and while in bodies as spirit workers, we want to have a foot in both worlds, navigating each with equal value. This is what the threshold work of conjure requires of us. It requires the ability to doctor the root of those who live on both sides of the door in service of God, the spirit of all three of these realms of life. We have really delved into means to declare sovereignty over our own spirit in this world and the other. That's the gray part.
Oh, yeah.
We have looked at how to grow the spirit that work with and through our spirit, including those ancestral spirits that live on in the inflowing tide of life. Now we can look at working with the threshold spirit, the holy throne, the light of God, and lastly, the root powers of the mojo and spirit bag. So in root work and conjure, spirit is the thing that even God is. The power of the spirit is the power.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then lastly, by entering into this work, by working with our spirit, the spirit and the ancestral spirits, we are better equipped and more spiritually mature and able to work with expanded powers and additional direct ones.
Oh,
and that's
very
it.
Nicely said.
Isn't
very
that?
Nicely said.
I
like
thought
that
so.
Book.
That's how
and
to challenge
book
adversity.
Is from The Candle in the Crossroads.
Yep,
by Orion Foxwood. Again, by Orion Foxwood, Candle, and the Crossroads.
Yeah, very good book.
So Jeremy and I have something in common. And you want to tell everybody, Jeremy?
We have polka dots in our brain.
Oh, yes, we do. Yep, we are the lucky recipients of multiple sclerosis.
That's right.
So if you want to talk about adversity, life isn't easy and has not been for us. Of course, it is not easy for anyone. But with this condition, you just don't know what you're going to wake up to every morning that you get up.
That is true. There are mysteries.
If you're lucky
every
enough
day.
to get up. If you're lucky enough to get up.
You know,
So,
just like with my car, I only know the things about my body that have gone wrong, and MS has added some seriously long words to my vocabulary. So there's some
Yep.
silver lining to that. It makes me sound smart because I'm obsessed.
that's right. And MS is a condition where it can cause you chronic fatigue.
Yeah.
It can cause you to have to go to the restroom all night long. It can cause you to be achy. It can cause you to have trouble speaking, episodes of trouble speaking and episodes of trouble walking. It can cause you to have insomnia at night. What else, Jeremy? I'm sure I'm missing some stuff. You'll forget.
Well, the uniqueness of because it's scar tissue, and your nervous system is all the copper in your body that is the wiring of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, the scars that are there cause things like that. Ataxia, that's a perfect example. It actually just kicked in.
Right.
That's where that was supposed to be going at this speed, and it didn't.
Yep.
Because I had to think about what I was saying, which is a normal thing I talk about all the time. I have ataxia, you know.
Right.
So that
you're trying to find the right words and they just don't come.
Right.
You have trouble
exactly.
retrieving the words. So there's these things.
Yeah.
And it's an everyday challenge and it's adversity. And you know, it is perspective. There's always someone who is doing better than you. There's always someone who's doing worse.
That is true.
And so keeping that perspective in life is super important when dealing with adversity. And last night, as you know, there were some challenges with my own personal symptoms. And so we turned on, you know, the TV and watched a Amazon Prime movie called Allison. Now, this is a true documentary where this young girl in 1994, she was driving home late at night and parked in front of her place, parked a little further down than where she's used to, but someone got into her car, man, with a knife at knife point, abducted her, and then his friend got in the car. And they made her drive to a secluded area thus having privacy and control. I call that PNC, privacy and control. So that's where perpetrators are able to harm you. If they have either one of those. Anyway, the story does get worse, but there is a happy ending to this, if you call it happy. But this woman endured getting raped violently in South Africa with these two men. And then they stabbed her 36 times, disemboweled her, and slit her throat, leaving her for dead.
Is that right?
She left her body, and she actually came back into her body, according to her in the story. And she had heard their names talking to each other. And so she wrote in the sand. Here she is, a bloody mess on her deathbed. She thought she was dying. And she wrote their names because she came back into her body because she did not want any other woman to ever suffer what she just went through.
And that was called Allison?
And then she wrote in the sand, "I love you, Mom." And she thought she was going to die. But this is the miraculous part. Well, there's several of her story. Somehow she was lifted up. Now I'm talking, this lady was decapitated, like where her neck was completely severed, and not even like she had to hold her own head up. She got up somehow and walked many paces, which if you looked, I mean, what happened, her bowels were outside of her body. So I'm not going to be more graphic on this, but
yeah,
she's holding her head up. She's a mess. She's dying. And somehow miraculously, as she said, it was almost like an angel carried her to the road, and she lay on the road. And a car came, and a young man got out and covered her with his jacket. And of course, police were called. To make a long story short, she went through many, many surgeries. And the two men, because she remembered the names and wrote it in the sand and so forth, they were caught and imprisoned.
Wow.
And she lived to tell the tale, and actually over many surgeries, many moments of depression, and a lot of PTSD, but she healed. She healed, and she was able to have 2 kids. This is Allison, the story of Allison, true story, 1994 in South Africa. And then she became a speaker that went around the world and spoke about adversity.
Yeah, I can't even.
And so now I look at my symptoms and challenges and health issues, and I say, you know what? I've got nothing good to complain about.
That's true.
And it really is some perspective and attitude, because really we are amazing human beings, and we can find solutions to many of our challenges. And then we got to let go of the outcome and really be attached to the process.
That is true.
So,
that is true.
With that said.
All right. So the next song. Oh, the next song. Everybody will recognize this band. So I'm going to read. Okay. So I guess I'll read. I have 6 meme-like quotes from Benjamin Franklin. And this is from Poor Richard's Almanac, which is just a bunch of one-liners through the whole thing.
By the way, Benjamin Franklin is one of my all-time heroes. This man would get up at like 4 a.m, and he was busy studying science, literature, philosophy, languages. He spoke like many different languages. And
do you know his magic squares?
No.
Oh, God. Well, we'll have an episode on magic squares then. Oh, that's super nerd, computer nerd stuff.
For the United States. He was just an incredible person.
Yeah. So magic squares, you can find them in kids' books because they're not, it's just how math works, but it's interesting what they are. All right, so let me go ahead and read a little bit of Benjamin Franklin here. Okay, so the first quote is, "He that riseth late must trot all day and shall scarce overtake his busyness at night."
Oh,
right? And then here's one, "A good lawyer, a bad neighbor."
Okay.
That's a good one. There's a lot of lawyer ones in here, but that's the one I picked. "If passion drives, let reason hold the reins." Right? So think with your head. Where's another one? This one is often misquoted, so that's why I picked this one. "A penny saved is 2 pence clear. A pin a day is a groat a year. Save and have." Okay. This is, "A little well gotten will do us more good than lordships and scepters by rapine and blood." And then lastly, "Little strokes fell great oaks," which is almost a Bob Marley quote.
Oh, that's
Bob Marley probably stole it from Benjamin Franklin. Yeah, probably.
Thank you for reading that.
You're welcome. Actually, Bob Marley and probably Ben Franklin both stole it from the book of Isaiah.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't want to get into it. Don't get me started. Don't turn off my OCD. So, I mean, other than one other song, I don't have much else to really resource for material.
Okay, so I want to add to some ways that I handle adversity. One, if someone is rude to me, I don't respond because they don't deserve my response. Two, if something is hard going on, I have learned that meditation is really helpful to just pull yourself aside and allow your spirit guide to assist you and work on your breathing. If you just sit quietly and still for 15 minutes and just focus on your breathing in and out and appreciate your breath, appreciate the life that you are given and the breath that you have, and try to calm it and regulate it, that is the first step that the monks train all their students as the very first lesson to become a monk. And I would highly recommend Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. Again, that's Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty.
I have one that came to me. You want me to give it to you?
Yes. Yeah.
By a guy named Napoleon Hill. Have you ever heard of him?
Okay.
Not the movie, not the cheesy movie thing, but,
but I do
Napoleon
like that
Hill.
movie.
Do you know? Well, I think it was Napoleon Dynamite, but Napoleon Hill.
Okay.
Gilded Age, tycoon, mega rich, all this other stuff. He wrote a book called Think Rich, Be Rich.
Mm-hmm.
And just your conversation about guides and stuff. It's a worthy read. I might bring that up as a future show if we do one on that.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big one to do.
Let's do that. And then the last thing I want to say is that when you practice talking kindly to yourself, you are then able to be respectful of others. So if you respect yourself, no matter what's going on around you, and can practice that and train your mind, then you can be the eye of the storm. It's like the storm is raging around you, but you can take that time out for yourself. And when one door closes, you can open 5 more. That's the way the universe works. So I'll leave you with that.
All right, so I'll do the closeout tune here.